Good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to be here. My speech title is Emotional Nature. So I think nature is important to my architecture. So I want to talk about that. This is a city I came from, Beijing. You can see in this photo a very classic part of the city. You can see mountains, and there's a pagoda and a lake. All this urban planning was from the old time, but I think the old urban planning was very much about how human can live inside a natural environment. So you see a lot of green and blue, right? But more important, this nature was curated as a very cultural, very much about cultural and emotional and the beauty. So why I think I'm talking about that? Because the modern cities are full of big buildings. For example, in this picture, at the background, you see a high-rise building. This is actually a rendering I did. There was a proposal for a renovation for a black color high-rise building in Paris, which called Tower Montparnasse. So my proposal was, you can see, to make reflective curtain wall and can mirror everything around the tower, but everything upside down. So the idea was to, from certain view, you see upside down Eiffel Tower, which was the first high-rise structure on Earth. But now I think we want to question about the high-rise and the modern architecture. They often become memorial of capital and power. So that's why we have many big buildings, but not enough nature. Talking about the nature, I want to show you two pictures. The classic gardens in West and the East. You can see in both scenery, the nature was important, but they actually treat it in different way. Especially on the right-hand side, you see Chinese garden. All this human made structure and the nature, they often mix together to make a very poetic scenery. So that's inspired me to make modern architecture. What if we create something new and modern, but often combine the natural elements together and to create something new, some new atmosphere that you cannot even find in real nature. So for example, this was a project we did in Japan. It's an art space. It was an existing tunnel, was concrete, but we applied the reflect material on the ceiling, and then we put the water, the river water, from the river into the tunnel, so the people can walk on the water, and also the water reflect the whole space to create this feeling that people can walk on the edge of the sky. So it's more about creating the scenery about floating river or something like that. So I thought that's a poetic, that's emotional, that you don't see in real nature, but when people arrive it, they can imagine more about their own life and the environment. What if we do big structure, like a high-rise building? So here is another experiment to treat the high-rise building not as a form, but more as a living organic structure. So here was a very early proposal of ours to combine the garden outdoor space on the high-rise building. So that was a proposal for that high-rise structure. And this is a model that I did in year 2006 was a proposal to renovate the traditional part of the city of Beijing. You can see these old houses and the hutong, the valleys, but we insert all these blue bubbles into the old city. And those are toilets, because in those small courtyard, they don't have a toilet. So I decided to make a new bubble structure with a toilet inside. So here you see the new structure and old structure. The reason I'm showing that is, to talking about what's the nature in this case. There was a famous writer saying the traditional courtyard, what's most important was the negative space, which is the emptiness inside the courtyard. The courtyard, you have a sky and the earth and the trees and the nature, and the people live around it, and they have a family, they have a love inside the empty space, which is the most important thing. Architecture and the buildings, they were just a definition for the courtyards. So the buildings are secondary in this traditional value. But in this case, we try to use this reflective material quality to show the surrounding sky and the trees and the old buildings into the new structure, so that this bubble almost disappear into the space. And this is also a high-rise project that we did in 2000. I think we designed it in 2005, and that was called the Absolute Tower in Canada, Mississauga, outside of Toronto. And people call this Marilyn Monroe Tower after, because the curvature of the building. I think the idea was, at that time, we tried to criticizing the high-rise building being too powerful and too strong, that we want to imagine what if the high-rise building become more natural and curvy and soft. So that was a starting point. We want to look at this high-rise building in a different way. And later, I designed this in Beijing. You can see this building from a sketch with also two high-rise buildings, but it's more like a sketch of mountains and the rivers, and then we made a model of this architecture. It's more like a penzai that you can put on your desk. It's a small sculpture to combine this sculptural shape and the living green together. And then we translate this into the larger scale, which is this black building in the center of this image. The idea to make a building look like mountains, because the side is directly facing a park. So you can see in this image, most buildings are more like matchboxes. They're taking this view, the nature as a resource. But our building, we try to blend into the nature more. So talking about the blending in, many people doesn't agree with it, because they think our building is actually standing out very much. But there's a very, very interesting painting. This was done by an art critic in China. He made all these traditional Chinese paintings and put the new architecture into those traditional scenery. So that's why you can see this black mountain. It's actually our tower. When he put it into this painting, it looks so fit, right? So look like you can tell this is a traditional Chinese, but in the reality, it's a different. I think the reality is also changing. You see, that's a Beijing city, CCTV tower, all these high-rise buildings. They look very powerful and strong. But here, I want to think about the possibility, what if the high-rise building can be part of the nature? So when you look at these towers from the park next to it, you feel this project is inside the park. It's almost, you can borrow the scenery from each other if you look at the building from the park. But the neighbor buildings almost create this boundary in between the artificial and nature. And this is the scene from the other side. In the city, we create this small open park as a public plaza, so everyone can come into this space. So the building almost bring the nature also into the urban context. So this architecture become this boundary in between nature and artificial, but it has a both quality. So it's a blurred boundary in some way. So it can be artificial, also can be nature. So that's some details for this architecture. And at the landscape, we create this water pond, these pine trees to remind people some scenery that you can find in traditional gardens. Here's another project in Beijing. It's a school, a kindergarten for kids. But you can see this colorful roof. It's surrounding a very traditional, very old courtyard house. So the idea was we kept the old house, and then we create these new classrooms around it, and we use the roof for the outdoor playground. So the new and old, they look totally different, but they're connected. All the spaces underneath, the classrooms are connected. This, when the building completed, you can see the kids can running around on the new roof, which is very colorful. So the color and the material, the architecture, you can clearly tell which one is new, which one is old. But they both have a courtyard. They're connected. So remember I mentioned the typology, the courtyard typology, the empty space and the trees inside the courtyard was more important than architecture. So that's why I think maybe it's important to continue this typology, to protect those trees by providing the new courtyard. So inside this space, you have a natural light, natural ventilation. You have, people can play outside, and they're more like an towards inner side kind of a space. But both new architecture and old architecture, they respect the nature, the trees, the scale. Oh, actually, if you stand in this old courtyard, look around, you don't see anything. You don't see the new building at all, because the scale of the new building is also single floor. You can only discover it when you enter the space. So here is, you can see the new building through an old gate. This is another kindergarten, very small house. We renovate actually in Japan. You can see the wood frame. That was an existing building, which was a house that the owner lived there for generations, but they want to demolish their house and build a bigger building, which is the community kindergarten. So the idea was to keep that wood frame as a part of the new structure. And they have this ceremony when they start groundbreaking. I think that was so moving moment. This small project, not many people, but they really respect the land, which is, the foundation for the building, also a foundation for the families and the memories. And this is when the kids, when they were standing here and expecting the new kindergarten, new house. And that's when the building completed. From outside, you see this white tent, almost like a soft building with some windows. From from inside, you see the old structure. So the old structure was a half of the new building, and so we keep the structure to hold some space, and then so you can save some budget of the cost, of course, but more important for us is to keep some memories from the past. So the family, the owner, when they're in the new building, they know that they can see something. You know, these old wood members, so they can remember their old house. Also, those children, when they grow up, they know the space was some stories about the building. So what I want to express is what's inside is deep rooted into the story, into the narrative of the land, but outside it looks different, right? You see these neighbor houses, and this building look is new and almost a little bit childish. So I think nature for me was also about the land, because the last story was about how humans feel about the land, and they have this memory. Here is a rendering. This is a proposal for a sports park in China. It's a very large scale. You see several stadiums here. But the idea was to bury all these stadiums into green mountains. From outside, you see this green slope, very large scale, almost like a volcano scale. But you can also climb, you can walk around those green mountains and climb them and reach the mountaintop and look around. And what's inside is a very large, like a big stadiums like this. This is another mountain. Inside is a swimming pool. But you have a natural light, you have a natural ventilation. It's not underground, it's above ground. But we just replaced the building facade material by green. And then we built we completed one outdoor stadium. Now we're constructing the rest of the mountains. So you can see, so what we're creating here is not a buildings, it's not a monument. Instead, is a park, is a natural environment. So people can feel freely, they walk around, they can wander on this slope. So the idea is the stadium is not a place just for matches. It's not just about the competition, which is the core value in our modern city. We build the new buildings to show the strength, to show this power. But here you feel freedom, you feel the green. So it's become more leisure and a daily space for people to come here, to bring their pets and family, their kids to be here, to enjoy the nature. And then, so you see the whole environment. We try to bury all these functions to let the large-scale structure disappear. But underneath, you still have the building, right? You have the corridor, you have the structure. This is some concrete entrance, through the space underneath the green into the stadium. In the future, there will be a new city, a high-density city around this place. So in this area, the idea was not having many big buildings, but an empty park, a green. So I think it's to borrow the concept from the old traditional courtyard, but to use it in the larger urban scale. This is another small project. It's a library we built in Haikou. It's a Hainan island. It's a concrete structure. We call this cloudscape. Cloudscape is more like an organic structure with a lot of holes in it. So you see this continued concrete structure with all these architecture elements all connected and undulating, but creating the space, the depths of the space into the structure. So those holes are the key, which again is emptiness. So inside those holes, you have a shaded space, which is very important for this tropical island, which is a very hot place, because they can have a shadow and air ventilation. But we're also using holes for the ceiling to bring some natural light into it. You can see the bookshelf. So in this space, you can sit here and you have some dark holes, some bright holes, and then you can look at the ocean from here. So you can read a book with this new angle to observe the ocean, the sky. I think which is very important to me that, of course, nature, it's objective. Sometimes the ocean is always there, the ocean is always beautiful. But what's more important here is to create this surrealness, the space of the surrealness, where you can stay and observe the nature, probably in from different angle. There's a staircase, and there's another reading corner. We also create this small library space for kids, so only the children can come into here. We also bring natural light, so it's a small space with a lot of holes as well. This is an opera house we built in Harbin, which is quite the north of China. They have snow and ice. So you can see this building trying to dance with the rivers. So it has a lot of curves in plan, but in elevation it has a slope. So the building almost blend into the horizon. So people can actually walk onto the facade when the opera house closed, and they can walk all the way to the rooftop and observe the sky. That's a space on the rooftop. So here you can see the position of this building. They try to be very, approachable, so the people can be easily come around and walk even on the building. So the building you feel more interactive. So architecture experience become a natural experience. It's continue this journey from the park onto architecture. So that's the inner space of this auditorium. We also bring the natural light into it. This is a residential tower we built in Paris. It's called a Unique. In this building, it's a building in this community. They have a lot of international architects. Each one design a building in their own language. So our building introduced a lot of curvature onto the balcony. We have a lot of outdoor space, but what I want to talk about it is how we designed outdoor space. We almost hand drawing all these balconies. So that's why you can see all these balcony look very random and organic, and they wave in different ways. So I think maybe that's how we can have a very natural feeling into a residential structure like this. So that's the view down. So from here, you see there's a kindergarten at the podium, and then people can have this opportunity to see the nature and to see other balconies. So this is almost like blur the shape of this building, right? To use these curves to make the building more living structure. This is another example, also a building residential tower we built in America, in Denver. So you can see this almost like a classic modern architecture, but we make a crack through the building and open this space as outdoor gardens. So you can see what's happened in this crack. We call this elevated canyon space, because this very close to the mountain range. We want to introduce this mountain climbing experience inside this modern apartment building. So inside this space, you have multiple levels. You have gardens and connect to the amenity space inside the building. But people can come out from multiple levels and they can walk outdoor, and this staircase actually connect different levels like this. So you have a lot of gardens. We also have a waterfall. So because we have multiple levels, water can flow from upper level to lower level. You can hear the sound. So you almost imagine this is something closer to the mountain experience. And that's a space in the lobby and also the community space, which is inside the building. This my sketch is, you see a very long bar building, which is an old warehouse. And we did this tornado structure. This actually staircase we designed to be inserted into existing warehouse building in Rotterdam, in Europe. The whole building will become museum. It's a museum about migration. That's why I also designed a bird here. So I brought a seagull over there because I thought the seagull was a metaphor for movement, like people move around as a bird. So here is the tornado structure. It's actually being functional as a staircase, bring people from the lobby to the second floor, and then continue their journey, become the sightseeing platform above the roof. And then we're using the stainless steel as a structure, also the cladding system. This is some construction picture. So the idea is to make this tornado really floating. We don't like columns. We don't like supports, right? This has to be floating in the air. And when there's an elevator, of course, in the middle to bring the disabled people go up and down. It's actually two staircase. So when you go up and come down, you can use a different routes. And at some point, people can meet each other. This is another project in Beijing. This is a picture showing clearly the building blending into the ground. So we use a green roof. This entrance to this building is a convention center. We only have one floor above ground, and major space is underground. And that's a space to reflect the water, to reflect the roof. Behind it is actually a sunken down space. And here we create a park behind the building and letting the roof blend into the green. So the building become half, the convention center, half park. And there was an existing tree here. We carved the building to make this surrounding tree theater. So we let the building to reshape, to blend into the natural context. In order to do that, we don't want to have a big structure above ground, so we have to have there's a sunken gardens, bring the natural light into the conference rooms underground. And again, inside the space, we have a lot of natural light and such. And I want to show you two more buildings under construction right now. This is a building in Los Angeles. It's called the Lucas Museum of Narrative Arts. It's a museum founded by George Lucas, the Star Wars director. And the idea was to build this floating garden. So you can see on top of the building has a lot of green and the roof terrace. And then we float this structure to allow a lot of green happening on the ground level as well. And the whole linear side has a very big park. So the building is floating, almost like a floating above the land. Also, in the middle of the building, we created a big arch to be a gateway into, so from this side of the building to another side. Here you can see how the scale of this gateway. It's actually become the entrance plaza to the museum, but you can also passing by to enter other museums like a natural history museum, space museum on the other side. So this building become the entrance to this museum park. So here you can see the shaded area underneath the building, but you can also see through the top floor. And here's some construction photos. You can see the building already show the floating quality. And we also have a lot of solar panels facing the west side of the building. The last one is also under construction in Shenzhen, a city in Canton in China. So these are two museums. You can see some stone shape, right? But it's actually, what you see is more like a sculptural space above the green park. Underneath the green, we have the major exhibition halls and the courtyards. So the idea is like this. We are surrounded by modern cities, but we want to build a big building, big museums. So we don't want to do a big structure. Instead, we want to do more open natural park. So here you see a green space. Underneath, of course, we have also the museum's exhibition space. And then we have this unusual space for exhibition above the park. Those are some construction pictures recently. Here the view from the city, look at the project with a background of nature. At the background, you see the ocean, the mountains from Hong Kong side. So this view almost remind me the building is situated in the ancient time. It's because there's no modern buildings at the background. But on the other side, you have the modern buildings, modern towers, which is very typical in Shenzhen, because Shenzhen built all these big city in quite short time. So many modern architecture. So here, I think what we want is something more like ancient landscape with this, like a huge rock by the river. But when you apply the building technique, the material, the details, it become a little abstract. So remind me of future existence. So we want to create more, to borrow the natural elements, create ancient future kind of atmosphere, which is, I think, important to a cultural institution to letting visitors come here and they feel a little lost and they can more explore the inner heart of themselves and imagine more about the future. So I think that's what I mean by emotional nature. Nature is important, but I think what's more important for us is to borrow the scenery, to imagine more and explore more spiritual dimension of ourselves through the nature. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was wonderful. Please. Well, we haven't got very long, but I'm determined to make the most of it. You showed us some very economic sketches. Yes. Like maybe 1 line, 2 lines. I mean, they're nice to see on the screen, and they explain perfectly the projects that follow. But they're your sketches, presumably. Do you do more elaborate sketches? Do you play with 3-dimensional materials, with clay and with other? How does it go from the sketch to the fully fledged design?
Yeah, we use other method. We do digital models, we do physical models, but I'm more at very early stage. I do hand sketch, which is very fast, very, very honest to your instinct.
So you're working a bit like a fashion designer that does a quick sketch.
It's actually old-fashioned way in architecture.
I love that. I think that's fantastic that the drawing is still, for you, is still very much part of the working process. But then it goes directly to digital?
Yeah, the sketch leave a lot of space actually. Then you can do many options in the digital model. Then you can decide later.
Yeah, you can test it too. It actually has sizes and sits on a specific plan.
Yes, hand sketch leave a lot of possibilities, but at least something is you sure about it. Right? Some quality in the sketch is the most important thing that you won't lose later.
And you're pulling, there's great wit and humor in lots of what you do, but you're pulling all forms of culture, it seems to me. Even the human body is somehow present in what you do. You seem to love shells. There are many projects in which you showed shell-like structures. But what about the role of the body as well as the landscape?
The bodies? Yeah, the bodies. In my mind, the body is a part of nature. Human is a part of nature. So what we're doing is a part of nature. Some people say, "Oh, you're talking about nature, but you're an architect. Everything you do is artificial," right? But I'm talking about artificial nature. And the nature around us is already being curated, being sought. So,
but you've taken great care to throw back to your cultural references through nature, which in Chinese culture has always been a source of interface between the power and structure of society and the landscape the many landscapes that exist in China. Does it all come from up here and from your understanding in your entire life, or do you actually research deeply into particular forms of nature?
Actually, I don't feel I have an obligation to talk about the Chinese culture just because I'm Chinese. I want to talk about because when I look at those old architecture, old art form, I thought they're inspiring. I think they're more advanced than modern architecture in my...
So you have very kind of strong respect for what went before. I also love the wooden structure inside the kindergarten, where, as you said, the children who are in the kindergarten, they would remember that subliminally, and kind of appreciate the structure of the naked structure of the house. But you didn't put new beams, you used old ones.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to keep them because they have a memories. I think humans' emotion are very important to me.
So when you see work done by contemporary architects, which is purely digital, and is wavy perhaps, and has kind of what some people call parametric architecture, do you think that it's missing a trick, that it's missing its
Human quality?
that there's no memory in there? Or if architecture attempts to eliminate memory, such as it did in modernism, is that to be held at great length?
I think it's related to each specific project. Not every building has this obligation to responding to that. In the city, in general, different buildings have a different role. Some building can be really, avant-garde and exploring the new things. But in this case, the architecture of a kindergarten, there was an old building there, so I decided to keep it.
So it was a kind of compensation for what wasn't there.
Yeah, the future is as the same important as the past.
So would you, if a client wanted a rectilinear building from you, would you say, sorry, I can't do it?
Nobody asked me.
No one.
No. They give me freedom. Actually, people are expecting architects to have a strong opinion, and they respect that, I think, in my case.
And do you think of, I mean, this is perhaps a last question, but do you think that your vocabulary, your work, fulfills a contemporary art role?
Actually, I'm practicing both. I do some buildings also. Many buildings are cultural buildings and do a spatial art piece sometime.
But is the building itself a form of
The
art?
language is, I think finding a language, for me, I don't want to find a style. I don't want to do some style and keep doing that. And the language-wise, I'm not sure what's my language yet. I'm trying to get away from all the existing language, which is really hard, right? You want to have a unique way to express yourself. So I'm choosing most abstract.
But in that abstraction, there's always this sense of bringing the visitor, to draw the visitor into the building, whether there's an entrance that is very evident from the outside, you're kind of teasing the visitor to go inside and to be intimate with the building.
Yeah, I think contemporary art and architecture trying to not tell people what it is about. Not giving too
not
much information to visitors, but to allow people to explore and finding their unique response, which is, I think, very important to cultural buildings especially. So people, they can think, they can explore, they can find their inner reaction.
Well, I hope we see many more of your buildings. Thank you so much, Ma, for sharing your way of working.
Thank you.